Hello, folks. We are moving on to the next stage of our curriculum by getting into a assignment that is based upon the idea of abstract art. Now, abstract art is truly unique when it comes to the history of art in all of humanity, really. Abstract art, it came about at the turn of the 20th century. It was the first time that you saw the artists working in the abstract style. And really what stands out with abstract art is that it is non-representational in nature. Non-representational. What I mean by that is that the artwork that the abstract artist makes does not represent anything. This is a clear, it's very different than what human beings have created artwork before, going all the way back to the caveman days. Before abstract art, the only kind of art that was really made in Western society was artwork that was based upon the idea that the pictures or the paintings or the drawings or the sculptures had to look like somebody or something. The human mind up until or not the human mind, but artwork up until that point, up until the beginning of abstract art was supposed to be something that you, the viewer, could stop and look at and recognize as being something. So up until abstract art, people expected to be able to look at a painting and say, oh, look, it's Jesus, or oh, look, it's this king, or oh, it's this person, or oh, it's this place, or oh, look at the pretty bowl of fruit and flowers. It's all things that the viewers could recognize. Then comes the turn of the 20th century, and the abstract artists started their movement. And what the abstract artists did is they rebelled against this tradition, the traditional thought that art was supposed to be something realistic. And what the abstract artists said is that as an artist, you could create engaging, captivating, interesting works of art that you could look at using nothing but lines, shapes, values, patterns, and color. And that and the abstract artists believed that if you went in and created artwork in this manner, what it would do is that it would allow the viewer to be able to interact more with the artwork than if the viewer was looking at something that was totally realistic and representational. So, case in point, look at this particular drawing. When you look at this, I don't look at this and say, oh yeah, this is a scene of that I can clearly recognize that this is a scene of a lady sitting on a park bench reading a book, and there's a dog at her feet, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and look at the pretty picture. Now, if I said that, most of you would look at me and go, what in the world are you talking about, Teague? I don't see a woman sitting at a park at a bench reading a book. Some of you, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that with abstract art, you as the viewer can use your imagination to be able to look at the artwork and create meaning. The beauty about abstract art is I might look at a piece at an abstract drawing or painting and come up with my own meaning. And you, as a different viewer, might look at that same piece and see something totally different. Abstract art allows each viewer to make their own meaning and to see their own things. Some people would look at this and would say it's nothing but lines, shapes, values, and colors. Other people would say, what are you talking about? Look at this right back here. That's a hubcap. And here's another hubcap. This is actually a drawing of somebody's car done in an abstract way. Other people would look at this and be like, what are you talking about? There's no car there. Look, that is clearly a flamingo or a duck, and this is all about it's based on a scene of animals sitting on a lake. Other people would look at it and say, what are you talking about? This is obviously a figure. Here's the head, here's the body and the arms, and this is a picture of a person sitting on a couch, and there's fans blowing across. That's where you get it. All of those interpretations are right, and all of those interpretations are wrong. There are no other styles of art in human history where you can be both right and wrong in your interpretation, which is one of the things that makes abstract art so amazing and interesting. Here's another piece for you. So the first question, remember, abstract art is all about artwork that uses lines, shapes, value, patterns, and sometimes color. So when you look at this, and it has to be non-representational too. So when you look at this particular piece, do you see lines? Do you see shapes? Do you see patterns? Do you see a full range of values? And finally, is this representational? Do you look at this and can you see a clear picture or a clear interpretation of a story? I don't see anything. There's parts of this that like reminds me of like a tabletop, maybe. These could be plates. Maybe this is a vase with flowers. I really don't like this drawing very much just because it's too messy for my taste. But if it comes down to abstract art, this is absolutely abstract art that meets all of the requirements of value, line, shape, pattern, and no color, but you don't necessarily need to have color. It's just a thing that some artists use. Here's another one. Is it a picture of anything? Some of you might look at this and say it reminds you of fire. Some of you might look at this and say it reminds you of flowing hair. Some of you might look at this and say that it reminds you of water. Like you're looking down at like a waterfall. All of those interpretations are right, and all of those interpretations are wrong. First question I have for you. Do you see a full range of values? Are there lines? Are there shapes? Are there patterns? That's what makes it abstract art. So one of the biggest branches of abstract art is the idea of geometric abstraction. Geometric abstraction is a style of abstract art where the artist is only focused on geometric shapes and is creating their artwork using nothing but geometric shapes. This is a painting that was done in 1967 by the American artist Frank Stella. Frank Stella was a master at geometric abstraction, and this piece is probably one of his most famous paintings that he's done. Now, when I show this, most students look at it and are like, what are you talking about, man? Like, yeah, all right. So there's squares and there's circles, but like, really, this is that great? This is an amazing painting. I stood in front of this at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This painting itself stands over 6 feet tall and from end to end is over 15 feet long. So the first thing, it's giant. This is a huge, huge painting. But what's so amazing about Stella's work is if you go and stand in front of it, and I've stood in front of it, I haven't brought a ruler out, but I visually measured every single stripe. So this stripe is the exact same width as this stripe, which is the exact same width as this stripe, which is the exact same width as this stripe. Every stripe is so perfectly measured and painted that there is no size difference from one stripe to the other. What's even more amazing is that when you look at the white space in between, that negative space in between each of these stripes, if you measure this negative space compared to this negative space compared to this negative space, they are all exactly the same. The exactness of how Stella made his paintings is incredibly baffling. It takes an amount of control of his paintbrush and his tools that is truly masterfully done. And his work, this is what you see in all of Frank Stella's work, is him showing off, him being able to say, look at how well I can control my paintbrush. Look at how well I can control how I'm making my marks. Because each of these is so incredibly perfect. It's almost done, almost looks like it's been done by a computer, but it's not. It's done by a human hand before computers were able to even create anything like this. Here's another piece of geometric abstraction. Beautiful part of abstract art is that abstract artists can look at the world around them and can take influence and be inspired by the world around them to create their artwork, but they're not making artwork that is representational of the world around them. This painting was done in the mid-20s, and this was I can't remember the name of the Harlem Renaissance artist that did this, and I should, but anyway. This painting was done in the middle of New York City, and it is a painting of the artist's view or the artist's interpretation of New York City. So you have like the mapped out of the streets in the city blocks. You've got different street signs that are represented in the shapes back in the background. You have power poles, graffiti. There's all sorts of different parts of the city that this artist is conveying, but it's not a picture of the city. He's not making a picture of, look, it's Central Park, and here I am in Times Square. It's amazing. This is what Times Square looks like. He's looking at the different parts of New York City at this time, and he's borrowing those, but he's putting it together in a way that turns it into geometric abstraction. Here's another one. What I particularly like about this piece is, come on now, let me go back. No, don't do that. I'm just messing everything up. Sorry, guys. One thing that I like about this particular piece is how the artist went in and divided the picture plane down into sections. And then in each section, they went in and they added different geometric patterns coming through. What I like about this piece specifically is how you can see the repeated motif of the eyeballs throughout. So when you get to your own abstract drawings, you remember you can include aspects of in your abstract patterns. You can include things that are realistic, and that doesn't change how it is abstract. The next off-branch of abstract art that I want to talk about is the off-branch of Cubism. Now, the Cubist movement really started in the 1920s, and it was the father of Cubism is the Spanish painter named Pablo Picasso. Now, Picasso was an amazing artist. A little bit of a jerk, but actually not even a little bit of a jerk. He was a really big jerk. But he was an amazing artist. By the time Picasso was 20, he had already completed his studies in Paris at the Paris Foundation of Art. And by the time Picasso was in his early 20s, he was an accomplished painter. He was able to create paintings that were incredibly realistic. He was able to create paintings that were that would rival the artistic skills of Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, and Michelangelo. He was that good. He could paint realistically. But Picasso in his 20s stopped and he went, why? Why should I paint realistically? I can paint like the great Renaissance masters. And guess what? For 600 years, since the 1400s, people have been painting like the great Renaissance masters. If you go throughout history from the 1400s to the 1920s, it's just over and over and over again. Oh, listen to the beat. It's just over and over and over again. These same ideas of here's a portrait, here's a landscape, here's a still life. And Picasso stopped and he went, the job of the artist is to be creative. The job of the artist is to put something new in the world that has never been put forth before. Picasso really, really admired the artwork of children. The artwork of youngsters. I'm talking 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds. What Picasso felt was that the institutions of art, the traditions of art, the schools that taught art, he felt that those institutions beat creativity out of children, and that the job of the artist was to be creative, which means the job of the artist was to be as simplistic and to have as much fun with your artwork as you can. Didn't feel like the job of the artist was to continue to copy and replicate the old masters. He felt the job of the artist was to bring something new into the world. And so Picasso's answer to this is the style of Cubism. And what Cubism is Picasso would go in and he would create artwork by actually observing and looking at things in front of him. He would hire models to come into his studio, and he would look at the models and he would paint them. He would set up still lifes and he would paint the still lifes. This picture was done in the mid-20s, and this is entitled The Guitar Player. Picasso actually hired a guitar player to come in and sit down in his studio and play the guitar. And while the guitar player was playing his guitar, Picasso painted him. And this is the painting that came out of that. So like a bunch of you are looking at this right now going like, what are you talking about? Here's the head. Here's his body with one arm coming out, coming to the neck of the guitar. Here's the shoulder coming down, the rest of the arm coming down to the sound hole in the body of the guitar. Here's one leg that comes up and is sitting on the chair. Here's another leg that's propped up to hold the guitar coming down. And what Picasso did is he went in and he created this by simplifying what he was seeing in his model down to its most basic shapes. And then he went in and he outlined those shapes with a dark black line. What that dark black line does is it actually flattens his image so that it doesn't have as much three-dimensionality in space. That's one of the things that Cubism really strives to do, is to flatten the image out and to get rid of that depth in space. But the other thing that Cubism really does is it focuses on this idea of looking at whatever it is that you're looking at and breaking it down into its most basic, simplistic, geometric shape. Here's another piece for you. Also done by Picasso. You have two guitarists. Come on, why does it do this to me every time? You have two guitarists. You have one woman standing here, arms to torso to the legs. Holding the guitar, you've got another woman that's standing here, her legs, her face, her torso. Looks like she's dancing or holding a fan. There's buildings back in the back. You've got trees and sky back in the back. There's a table, bowls of fruit. When you look at this, it's all like you can see that there's aspects of this that you can recognize as being specific things. But in the true Cubist style, it's not done realistically, and it's done so simplified that it begins to become abstracted. In the 1920s, this was a huge deal. So Picasso was working in Paris during this time, and Picasso's first exhibition, his first Cubist show, caused riots in the street. People had already seen Picasso's work. Picasso was young. He was making a buzz in Paris and like, oh, look at this amazing painter. He's so young and he can make such beautiful paintings. And like people took their artwork really, really seriously in the 1920s because there was no television, there was no radio, there was no other media like that. And so when Picasso's first Cubist blasted beep, I bet I'm going to have another one to get interrupted in. When Picasso's first Cubist exhibition went out, people went to see it and they were expecting to see his realistic work, and they got stuff like this and they walked out and they were mad. People were like picking up garbage cans and throwing them through storefronts. Like there were literal riots. People were so upset because they're like, how in the world could somebody say that this is art? This isn't art. It challenged everything that they were used to, because up to that point, they were used to seeing realistic, pretty pictures. And the abstract cubist artists did not do that. So, what are you guys going to be doing? In the past, when I've done this particular lesson or an assignment, what the students were expected to do was to create a work of art or a drawing that was pure 100% abstraction. What I wanted you to do is to go in and to create a picture that is 100% non-representational. You're making a picture that you are just using lines, using shape, using pattern, using a full range of value to create a picture that is captivating to look at. So when you look at this particular piece, this is totally non-representational. You've got different sections of the drawing that are divided up. You have your flat values, you have gradient values, and you have a full range of values to create a drawing that is non-representational in nature. Now, there's parts of this that when you look at it, I can recognize and I can see some things. Like, look at this. There's a moon right there. Or look at this. That looks like a staircase coming down. Or look at this. This looks like a checkerboard or a chessboard. Or look at this. This looks like a vine with thorns. There's different things on here that remind you of things that are real. But is it a picture of anything that's real? The answer to that is no, which means this turns into an abstract drawing. Here is another piece. Lines, shapes, patterns, value. Swirly patterns. The patterns of the centrifugal lines, the pattern of the sun coming back in the back, flat values, gradient values, full range of values. This is totally abstract in nature. Here's another one. Once again, here you've got the sun with the rays coming in, gradient values coming through. Ah, look. Look, there's a face, and there's an eyeball, and there's the American flag. You can include things, actually you are required to include things that are real in this particular piece, but your background has to be done in a way that shows abstraction. It has to be done in a way that is non-representational. So let me pause this real quick. Now, for this particular assignment, I want you to go in and you're going to use both representational and non-representational elements inside of the picture that you're going to draw. I want you to draw this picture directly in your sketchbook, so there's no need for you to come to the school and get any extra materials. Everything that you have at your house will be adequate for this drawing. So the requirements for this drawing is that, number one, you are going to use a minimum at least 3 geometric shapes. In the composition of your drawing. Number 2, I want you in your negative space. I want that to be abstract. In the positive space, and the positive space is going to be inside of the 3 geometric shapes that you draw. Inside of the positive space, I want you to be realistic. So you're going to draw 3 different geometric shapes on your drawing. I'd like these 3 geometric shapes to be different sizes. And inside of these geometric shapes, you are going to pick an object, pick a thing. I really don't care what that is. And I want you to draw that object realistically. So you could, so here, case in point. Here's an example that I drew. So my three, come on, get in focus. You got it. So the geometric shapes that I chose was a circle. So I've got one circle here, one circle here, one circle here, and I did count this large piece as being a circle. And the object that I decided to draw inside of these circles is the eyeball. What I'm going to go in, so in this instance, 4 different eyeballs, 4 different views of the eyeball. I went in, just used Google image search to find different eyes or different faces, drew those out on this, and then I went into the background. Black negative space, man, that's a lot of black negative space. Don't do that to yourself. When I drew this, and I'm going to post a video of a speed drawing where you're going to see the entire process of how I drew this. This much black negative space took like way longer than I wanted it to. So don't do this. Have some black areas in your area or in your drawing, but use more patterns than deep, dark, black negative space. It's going to take less time for you to be able to shade that in. And then you just fill in the background with different patterns. Make sure that you've got your gradient values and your flat values with a full range of value. Inside of your geometric shapes is realistic. Outside of the geometric shapes that you draw is going to be abstract. Here's another piece. So I have not gone in and shaded this piece in yet. So I did three different rectangles, and I was looking at it and was like, what could I turn those rectangles into? First thing I went to was dice. Rollins, that one's for you. Dice for sure. And then I went, well, dice is too much linear perspective. I could just do playing cards. And then in the background, I could go in and have different patterns and different shading with the playing cards coming through. That totally works as well. Remember, inside of your minimum of 3 geometric shapes is going to be realistic. Outside of your 3 geometric shapes is going to be abstract. So a bunch of you right now, I'm sure, are asking like, okay, how are we supposed to do this? So let's go. Let me go through and just give you a rundown. I don't have anything pre-planned at this point. First thing that I'm going to do in my sketchbook page is I'm going to draw a border. I would like you to have a border on this drawing on the top and on the bottom. It just makes the drawing easier to frame. And with this drawing, oh man, these drawings always end up looking really cool. So having a frame around it just makes it more polished and gives you more of a like, ha ha ha, look at how good I am as an artist. You'll definitely see the difference. So just take a ruler. I'm just using the width of my ruler to create that equal border all the way around. So really, you're going to be making a drawing that's like 8 inches by 7 inches, maybe 6 inches. So once you get your picture plane all mapped out, then the question is, what's my geometric shape? What geometric shape do I want to use? Just looking at my desk, I have a variety of different shaped squares that I can go in and use as a template. So you can trace things out. Like I could go in and I could trace out circles if I want. Like whatever geometric shape, guys. You could use a rhombus, a trapezoid, whatever floats your boat. Like really, I'm not gonna give you any grief on any of that at all. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a square right here. I'm going to put another square over here, but I want this to kind of go off my frame a little bit. So it seems like I've got some overlapping coming through. And then I don't want to use the same square here. I'm just going to draw a rectangle right here like this. a little bit larger than this one and a little bit smaller than this one. It's not a perfect square. It's got a little bit of foreshortening on it, but I hope you folks will forgive me. Now, once I get my minimum of 3 shapes down, now the next thing that I got to figure out is, what do I want to draw? What is going to be the realistic object that I am going to put inside of these squares? That's a question that you have to answer for yourself. Does not matter to me. It's just got to be school appropriate. So if you want to do cars, cool, do it. Flowers, awesome. Trees, fine, whatever. Any sort of animal, wrenches, tools, guns. I really don't care what it is. But you've got 3 different objects that you are going to draw in a realistic style. I personally already did eye holes. That's all right. That'll be fun. I'm going to go with octopods. Or an octopus. I love drawing octopods or octopus. So if I've got 3 different shapes here, I'm going to fit those into this drawing. So this is the largest one. Let's go ahead and I'm going to draw the body of the octopod coming up like this. This will be a tentacle. Remember, just like we talked about at the beginning of the year, please, please, please do Google image searches. Go in and find pictures of whatever object it is that you're drawing and use that as your source material. If I've drawn, I'll be honest, guys, I've drawn more octopods than I ever want to admit. So I've got some practice on how to make this come through and how to make the octopod tentacles and everything flow in together. So you could do anime characters. Go draw something that you like. Draw something that you're interested in. Draw something that you're going to have fun drawing. Because if you're not having fun drawing it, then what in the world are we doing, right? So I can't fit an entire octopod in here. So you can see part of it coming through. There'll be shading going on in that. Maybe I'll add some bubbles coming through like this. Now I've got these smaller pieces up here. Maybe I'll do an octopus tentacle actually coming out of this piece. That could be fun. The purpose of making this style of drawing is, what do you want to do? You want to make something that looks cool, guys. You want to make something that's interesting. You want to make something that is that's going to be captivating to your viewers. Maybe right here, I'll actually have to go in and look this up. Maybe right here, it'll just be the octopus's eye that's going to be looking out at you like so. So you're going to go in and you're going to draw in each of these a different view of whatever object that you're drawing. And then in your background, in the negative space, this is where the abstraction is going to come in. So pay attention to what I'll add a couple of extra bubbles in here. Pay attention to what you're drawing in here because you can use this as inspiration for your pattern in the background. So I could come in and add extra lines and patterns coming in. If you go in and divide your background up into sections, it actually makes this process way easier. So look, I've already got a section divided here. Right here, I'm just going to continue this shape in this pattern, making this just a little bit smaller. And maybe what I'll do here is I'll go in and I'll start to pull out the bubble pattern of those circles in these different sections. Oh man, I could get into centrifugal rings. This could be super black, and then each ring could get a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. And you're just going in and you're just filling up. So, okay, I've got, look at this pattern right in here. I could go in on this side and I could get that pattern of the suction cups coming through. and I could really pay attention and overly simplify what that's looking like. It's just going in and filling all of these different areas up. Once you get your line drawing done, then it's just a process of going in and doing your shading. Make sure that you have a full range of values. Blacks, deepest, darkest blacks that you can get. Brightest whites you can get in a variety of grays. Make sure you are using gradient and flat values. Those are the expectations that I have for this assignment. So, things are weird. Things are weird with the internet being down at the high school. Totally get it. Totally fine. Please review everything that I've loaded up onto the Google Classroom. As far as the due dates are concerned, every hour is going to have a slightly different due date, but we'll make it work. Looking at this project is going to be due at the end of next week, beginning of the following week. But like I said, look at the Google Classroom to get all of that instruction. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Other than that, good luck and happy drawing.